Okay, you're kind of spread out across the room, but I like it, and I like the little babies too. So I am Heather. I am here tonight because I know what it's like to be a parent of a child bullied. I know what it's like to be bullied, and I am not a parenting expert, but I am an avid reader. I'm a dedicated researcher and a constant learner. And my hope tonight is that I will give you some tools and some encouragement and hopefully some inspiration to navigate bullying with your children. So my story is when I was in the second grade, my family moved to Oklahoma. So I went from Huntington Beach to a little tiny town in Oklahoma. And my first day of school, I was pushed up against a fence and a boy kissed me. Very devastating for me to be super new and already being attacked in that way. Then 3 years later, we moved back from Oklahoma to California, and I started attending a small private school. So the school I was attending, all of the kids there had grown up together, and we were all in the fifth grade. So they were really familiar with them as friends, and I wasn't. I was the outsider. I was also extremely short. I still am, but I was really short child. So short that the janitor had to keep coming and adjusting my desk lower and lower until one day he came back with a pillow. And he said, "I'm sorry, I've lowered your desk as far as I can. You're going to have to sit on this pillow." And so I right away was getting a lot of unwanted attention. And my teacher noticed this, fortunately, and she hooked me up at lunch with a group of kids, and I suddenly felt a part of. It changed my perspective of school, and I really liked my group of friends. One day we were getting ready to go home, and we were gathering all of our things like we normally did, and I went over to my group of friends so we could walk home together, and they all turned their backs towards me. They put their faces down, they kind of looked mean, and they kept looking back over, looking at me, and I had no idea what I had done. And immediately I felt like I had done something wrong. And I went over to them, and I remember going over to each place that they were kind of gathering their things, hoping that one of them would say something to me. And I definitely did not feel confident enough to say, "Hey, we always walk home together. What's going on?" So I started walking home, feeling extremely sad, very lonely, had my head down, walking home. And I didn't get very far from school when I heard, "Hey, Shorty," behind me. And, "Hi, sweetheart." So I kept walking and started walking a little bit faster, and they started yelling things. The group of kids was behind me, and they started yelling things at me. So they were yelling mean things like my stature. They were calling me short. They were making fun of the fact that I came from a single-parent home, and they just kept on. As I walked faster, one of them ran up behind me and stepped on the back of my shoe, which caused me to trip, and they continued it, fueled their fire. I got up and I started to run, and they began to throw rocks at me. And so they were throwing rocks and sticks at me the entire way home, yelling mean things. It was extremely devastating. So advance 2 years later, and I'm now a parent of a sixth grader, and I was picking up my son Tyler. So I forgot to tell you, I have 3 children. I have a 26-year-old and 2 daughters, 16 and 14. And so this day I was picking up my sixth grader at the park where we normally meet, and I was extremely busy that day. I have him, the sixth grader, and then I had an infant in the car as well with me. And when he got in the car, I briefly said hello, but I was on the phone and I was talking to a friend because I was wrapping up some business that I was doing for a Mom's Club event. And when he got in the car, I was physically present, but I wasn't available to him. The whole time on our way home, I continued to talk to my friend and didn't really engage my son very much. A couple weeks later, my son opened up to me and shared that while he was at the park before I had picked him up, 2 of his friends, who had been his friends for the whole entire school year, had physically assaulted him. They had pushed him down, they had taken his backpack, they had hit him with his backpack, and they had called him all kinds of mean names. I don't know why they stopped. He doesn't know why they stopped, but all I know is that when he opened up and shared that with me, I asked, "Why didn't you tell me, son?" And he said, "Because I knew you were busy with stuff." And it broke my heart then. It still breaks my heart now, to know that if I would have been available and if I would have noticed that my son was disturbed that day, that I could have guided him through that bullying situation. And then a lot of years after that, I'm now dealing with my daughter, Savannah, and she's in the 6th grade. I just want to note that bullying happens at all grades. Middle school is extremely difficult, very difficult for kids. And so she was in the 6th grade, and she came home, and she was very upset. And she shared that her friend group that had been her friend since the 1st grade, ignored her at school. They all ganged up against her, calling her names, telling her she was a bad person, a bad friend, and they ran away from her. They were extremely mean to her, and when she was explaining what they were saying to her, I was getting very emotional along with her. I immediately remembered my own bullying experience. I immediately went back to being in the 5th grade and feeling like something was wrong with me, that I had done something wrong. I also packed on the guilt of not being available for my son that time. And so there was really no rational thinking. We were both very, very upset. Fortunately, I am an avid reader, and so I had read an article about a breathing exercise earlier, and so I remembered this breathing exercise, and I want to do this breathing exercise with you guys tonight. So I said I'm going to give you practical tools, and so I want you to go home with a tool that you can actually use, and I think the best way for you to be able to use a tool is for you to be able to do it. I'm going to show you this paper right here is in your handouts, and the method that I'm going to show you is called box breathing. And essentially, you can use this paper, or the paper is a good way to teach a child. But what you do, and I'm first going to walk you through it, and then we're actually going to do it. So what you do is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4, and then you breathe out for 4, and you hold for another 4. So this is a method that you can use with a child to help them to trace. But what we're going to do tonight, and I want you to do this because this is how I want you to teach your children, is you're going to imagine the box. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through it 2 times, and then we're going to have our eyes closed. And afterwards, I'm going to ask that you keep your eyes closed, and we're going to pray. So if you will, please close your eyes. And then I'm going to ask you to take 1 breath in, and it's fine to do this with the mask. We're going to leave masks on. But close your eyes and take 1 deep breath in and hold. And then you're going to do a 4 count in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to repeat that 1 more time. So eyes closed, in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 2, 3, 4. And hold 2, 3, 4. And then just regular breathe, and if you'll pray with me. Father God, we are so grateful to come before you tonight. Lord, I ask that you would impress upon these parents exactly what they need to know, Lord. Let them walk away with the tools that will be best applied to their situation. Lord, we thank you for our children. We thank you for the gift that they are. We pray all of this in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Thank you. All right, so bullying brings on a lot of physical and mental stress, and it can be all-consuming. The physical reactions to bullying can cause a lot of anxious feelings. And I think it's important for us to understand how the brain works so that we can explain it to children. When children don't understand how their reactions happen, they often think, like I did, that something's wrong with them or that they did something wrong. So the basics of the brain work like this. And I'm going to read it to you because I'm not a scientist and I want to make sure I get it right. The brain has a natural instinctive reaction to danger that's regulated by a section of the brain called the amygdala, which is often referred to as the reptilian brain. The reason why it's called the reptilian brain is because it just serves basic functions like breathing and our balance. Its main job is to keep us alive. It's the part of our brain that when you hear a loud bang, you automatically jump without even thinking about it. It happens within milliseconds. And the front part of our brain is responsible for words, thinking, and planning. And oftentimes when we face a danger or a stressful situation, our reptilian brain turns on automatically. There's no thinking about it, it turns on. And in turn, the thinking part of our brain almost fully shuts down, so all of the body's energy can be used to survive the perceived danger. The response is called fight, flight, or freeze, and you've probably heard about it. The body's physical reaction can be symptoms like rapid heartbeat, sweaty hands, dry mouth, nausea, butterflies in your stomach. And the fight and flight or freeze actually causes you to not be able to recognize facial expressions as well as you would. The FFF, which is flight, fight, or freeze response, is a great response if you need to fight an attacking dog or flee from a falling tree. But the amygdala is working, and since it doesn't have the help of the thinking brain, it doesn't have the ability to distinguish between a grizzly bear or a bully. And so because of that, our body reacts the same way. So to turn on the thinking part of the brain, you need to do so that you can rationally process what's going on. You can do things like grounding exercises, like the breathing exercise that we did. You can look up on YouTube videos for explaining the FFF to children, and I would recommend that you do that and show it to them. There's great animated videos that explain that process, and I would do that. When you can explain to a child how their brain works, then they can shift their thinking into, instead of, why is this happening? What's going on? What's wrong? Into, I know what's happening. And as a result, they can kind of start to look at their triggers. So triggers can be things like I explained, rapid heartbeat, sweaty palms. I like to compare these for a child to a low battery indicator light on the iPad. When the kid sees that the low battery is happening, they know that something needs to be given care and attention to this iPad. So essentially, you can teach them that when you start to feel these triggers, that's your signal that you need to give care and attention to yourself. When they shift this thinking, it really empowers them into understanding that I know what's going on, and that is empowering. The old saying, knowledge is power. I like to say that knowledge is empowering. And I think the more that kids know, the more they're empowered. I think it's also extremely important when you're dealing with your kids and navigating bullying that you know your child. God wired us all with unique personalities, and it's important that you know how your child likes to be loved and how they like to receive that love and that critique. Knowing how they best like to receive love and critique can really help you to navigate the bullying situation. And you probably know your kids. You've dealt with your kids for a lot of years. You know them. I would encourage you, even if you think you know your children and how they like to respond to things, how they like love, I would still encourage you, use the tools and assessments that are out there to further know your child's wiring. There is a great book. It's called The 5 Love Languages. It's by Gary Chapman. It's been around for 25 years. And Gary Chapman and his team have done an amazing amount of research into personality assessments that will really help give you an idea of your child's wiring. There is a fantastic online resource that they have, and they have tools and assessments that are all broken down for different age children. I would encourage you to go on there and do those tests and really get to know how your child likes to receive that love. My eyes were really opened up to the importance of this when we did a Bible study here called I Said This, You Heard That. And the study was based on Ephesians 4:29. I'm going to read it to you. And it says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it might benefit all who listen." The idea behind this was based on that Ephesians scripture, in that once you know the temperament of your child or of your family members, you can best communicate how they like to receive love and how it will best benefit them. So it's according to their needs. When we did this study the first night, our homework was to go home and have our children take the assessment. And I was absolutely blown away how opposite my daughters were. My daughters are less than 2 years old, less than 2 years apart. And so they have always been lumped into the same activities. They've worn matching clothes or coordinating colors. Shared a bedroom. If you've seen my daughters, you've probably mistaken them for twins, but their wiring was completely different. So different that I had to immediately adjust the way that I parented them individually. Something as simple as just the way that I woke them up in the morning had to change. And I think it's important that you realize that and take the test yourself. Notice the difference between the way that you like to receive love and the way that your children do. And then you can talk about that. Having open communication with your children about their personality traits is so empowering for them. My daughters were a little bit older, and so I encourage you, it's never too late to start doing that and to really get to know your children a little bit more. The Psalm 139 is one of my favorite verses because it talks about how God knitted us together right from the very start. And God put that wiring in us from the very start. And I think that's a reminder and confirmation that we know that, and that is important for us to know that wiring. I've heard a lot of parents say things like, well, I parent this way because this is how I was parented and I survived, or, well, this is just how I am. I don't think that's good enough. I think every generation, and I would think that you would all agree that we want to do better for our kids than we were done, right? My mom used to say, when we do better when we know better. And Maya Angelou said it this way: do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. And so I think when we know better, we can do better. All of our children are wired a certain way. And if you can find out what makes their wire spark, then get on their level. It will open up the door to so much good communication between the two of you. When Savannah came home that day and shared her bullying experience with me, like I said, I went right back to being my 5th grade self. I threw all of that epic parent failure with my son in there, and I was in a really, really stressed out state. I was bringing in all of my experience to her experience, and our experiences are not the same as our children. And I think it's really, really important that we keep our experiences out. If you need to seek professional help and work through your bullying experience. If you can't, or even if you do, the key is staying curious. Keeps your stuff out of it. If you stay curious and you keep asking questions, it will keep your own stuff out of it. So it's like a little secret tool. Just keep in the back of your mind, like Dory, except you just keep being curious. That's your job. And when you keep being curious and you ask questions, you find out so much more about your child. So just keep being curious. It's also hard not to jump in and want to tell your child how they feel. So they come home and they're super upset. They're explaining this bullying situation, and you want to jump in and tell them how they feel. Another one of the things in your handouts is this feeling chart. And I think this is such a valuable tool. Side note, this is a great tool for couples as well. If you're in an argument, sometimes you just don't know how you feel. This is such a beautiful thing. At the top of each section, it says a main word for how they feel, and then underneath there's various ways that feeling can be expressed. Allowing your child to name the feeling that they might feel is way better than you saying, man, you must have really felt sad about that. Maybe they were mad. Maybe they weren't even sad. And when you keep the door open to that conversation, it allows your child to process in a healthy way. And then once they've processed through that and you've helped them process through that, high five to you, point out the way they processed and show them how they positively processed through that. That's empowering for your child. It's also important to name the truth behind the feelings. So child comes home and they're telling you about how at lunch that day, their best friend said, I'm mad at you. You can't sit with me at the lunch table. And they're really upset explaining this to you. They're so upset and they yell, I'm going to have to sit at the lunch table alone for the rest of my life. This is your opportunity to step in and offer them reminders of the truth. When you can help to seek the truth with your child and they can feel the feelings logically and work through the truth of who they are, which is usually the opposite of what the bully is saying, it's, again, empowering for them. Remember, you might have to engage their thinking brain before you can get to that logical part. And so then you're going to do grounding exercises or breathing exercises and then move on to that next part. I'm going to take a little drink of water. So I also think it's really important that we notice the difference and we note the difference with our children between teasing and bullying. So I don't know about you, but I did not want my children, and I still don't, walking around being victims of life. You know, like Eeyore, he walks around, he's always down, gray cloud following him, something bad is always going to happen. I think it's really important that we teach our children that just because someone's not nice to them doesn't mean that they're a victim of bullying. I like to use the acronym BOO, and this is a good way to explain bullying to a child, and then it can help you decipher whether this situation is bullying or teasing. So the first letter B stands for being mean. And being mean is different than just being unkind. People are unkind, that's unfortunate. Sometimes we're just unkind. But a bully is being mean on purpose, and it's hurtful and it's harmful always. So being mean is the B. The O is for on purpose. And people often continue to be mean on purpose. Teasing is different. Teasing is playful. Sometimes it's annoying. But usually when you ask the teaser to stop, they stop. With bullying, it continues on. And the bully even likes to fuel off of that. And so when they see that the person is hurt, they continue to bully even more. And the last O is over and over again. So it's being mean on purpose over and over again. Having these elements of bullying can help you to talk with your child rationally and say, was this bullying or was this teasing? Statistics say 1 in 5 children will be bullied. I think that's pretty high. And 41% believe that it will happen to them again. At some point, all of us have encountered a bully. Some of us even encounter bullies in our workplaces as adults or in our home. But children experience bullying. The basics of bullying are all the same. One person at their core is hurt and broken and lashes out at another who they feel is weaker. A bully is usually learned behavior from being bullied themselves, or they have unknowingly taken on bullying as a survival skill. Either way, I think the most important thing for us to realize with bullying is that the root of a bully is pain. And there's various types of bullying. So we know the basic types, and I just want to explain them to you so we can recognize that as well. There's physical bullying, which is hitting, pushing, shoving. It can even be stealing or damaging someone's things. There's verbal, which is easier to hide. It's name-calling, making up rumors, and spreading gossip. And then there's social and emotional, which is the hardest to spot. And this is the one that leaves children feeling sad, scared, and lonely. In my opinion, this is the most common type of bullying that's going on today. And because it is the hardest to spot, we really need to be present and not miss opportunities to guide through these experiences. Social and emotional bullying looks like embarrassing someone in front of others, ignoring someone, or leaving someone out on purpose. And then there's cyberbullying, which is a combination of social, emotional, and verbal, and it's the use of apps and the internet to do those same types of bullying things. Bullying can really blur the lines. We've all experienced and probably said something like, I cannot believe that person did that to me, where we're absolutely shocked by someone's behavior towards us. We can get caught up in relationships and get blinded to red flags in the beginning, and children are blinded to those red flags even more so. I think one tool that I used with my daughters that was super helpful is to make a non-negotiables friend list. So this is a list of qualities for your friend that they must have. It's not a perfect friend list. That's not the idea here. But it's a list of qualities that they can use as a guardrail for when they're making friends and when they're maintaining friendships. One of my favorites on my daughter's list was good friends don't exclude, they include. So let your child steer the ship on creating the list. Your list is going to be different. I have a friend who's late to everything, but she's a great friend in a lot of other areas. So I'm okay with that. But what your child sees as important might not be the same things as you do. So let them steer the ship on creating that. A good starting point is to have them make a list of why they're a good friend. Usually the things that they see in themselves as being a good friend are the things that they're going to look for in friend qualities. And then aim for 7 to 10 so that these are easy to remember. When their emotions are high or maybe there's some blinders going on, they can reflect back on that list, that guardrail list, and remember those things and make sure that they're being in a line and having healthy boundaries with their friends. Depending upon the age of your children, you're going to have more influence. So say your 6-year-old says, my friend list includes that my friends have to have the newest PlayStation system. This is a time where you can step in and really talk about friend qualities and what does a real friend look like. And obviously it doesn't usually include having the newest PlayStation set. When your children are older, it's time to listen and learn. And the more you're quiet and the more you listen, you learn so much. It's a beautiful thing. One thing I've learned to say with my daughters is, I have some opinions about that if you'd like to know. And then I leave it. Sometimes I actually even physically walk away. And 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and they'll say, hey, Mom, what do you think about that? But when you offer your opinion up front, it doesn't allow them to fully process through. And in turn, they don't get to rationally process how they want to be in relationships. And so it's empowering for them to be able to come back to you. And I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they'll come back. And then you get to give them your opinion. As your children get older, this list can evolve and change. It can even go into a point where they can use this type of list in a dating situation. John Gottman is a extremely smart guy, doctor. He spent over 40 years studying relationships, and he came up with a concept called the emotional bank account. And the idea is, like a bank account, there are positive and negative balances in your relationship. Deposits are simple acts of care, and then withdrawals are hurtful behaviors directed at another person. Obviously, a healthy relationship is one that is in the positive. So typical human nature, we know, is to focus on the negative even when we experience positive. So think about a time that you went to a restaurant and you had a fantastic meal, the lighting was great, the company was amazing, the food was just out of this world, and then the bill comes and they've overcharged you for the table next to you, and the manager is making it really difficult. That's what you walk away with. You remember the bad situation. Gottman's research illuminated the fact that it takes 5 positives to make up for 1 negative. So therefore, small daily positive deposits are way better than big over-the-top acts. So several years ago, my little box of magic, we were in the middle of a pretty tough season of bullying with Savannah. And I was listening to a podcast by Brene Brown, and she shared about her daughters being bullied. And Brene shared the idea of a marble jar. And just like Gottman's emotional bank account, the marble jar works the same way. And it's a great teaching tool for kids. So essentially what you do, what you do is you recognize loving acts of care. And so essentially you're telling your children that they have a marble jar and each jar is your friend's account. When they do something nice, like let you borrow a pencil, you put a marble into the jar. And then if maybe they reach out because it's your birthday, that small act of kindness earns another marble. And in the same token, if they make a poor choice as your friend and maybe they make fun of your clothing style, then a marble is removed. So I think this is a great visual tool, but I'm not actually recommending that you keep a jar for all of your children's friends. I would recommend that you find something that you can teach your children this concept with, and then from there you put it aside. But after that, you can talk about it, and you can say, we're going to talk about this in like an imaginary way. So when your child comes home and they say, I had a classroom job today and Mary helped me, you can say, when Mary helped you with your classroom job, did that earn a marble in her jar? You might have to point out small acts of things that they miss, but I would advise don't point out negative unless you see a pattern of your child as being, maybe they're allowing someone to treat them poorly, then I would point that out. You can also encourage your child to say, hey, imagine your friends have jars for you, and your goal is to be a full jar friend. So I found little bouncy balls. Find anything that works. It's just kids will learn from something visual. And then children need planned emotional responses, empowering responses. When their emotions are high, they need to already have a tool that they can pull out. And so I like to give them healthy emotional responses. When a bully says something like, I can't believe you wore that shirt, a healthy response is, everyone has their own style, and I like this shirt. Then when you're at home and they're explaining, you always want to acknowledge the hurt feelings. So again, you're going to pull out the feelings list, and you're going to acknowledge whatever they say. So I'm really sorry that made you sad. I'm sorry that made you feel lonely. But you're going to say, I'm so glad that you love that shirt, and you're confident and you're good at wearing it. A healthy response from your child to the bully is the modern day equivalent of punching the bully on the nose. But teaching your child to fight back with kind words will empower them. It also shows the bully some compassion, and it puts your child in a position of being the kind one versus being labeled as a bully themselves. Another thing is sometimes you can cut off a bully. So sometimes you can completely remove yourself from interaction or connection with the bully, but sometimes you can't. So gray rocking is a technique used when you have to interact still with the bully. So picture a gray rock. It's uninteresting, pretty boring. People who bully others thrive on drama, and so less emotional interaction you have with them, the better. So the idea of the gray rock is to make yourself uninteresting as possible to the bully, but just to the bully. I always tell my girls, at all other times, you shine bright, keep shining bright. The other idea is called fogging. Sometimes it's sort of like agreeing with the bully, and in a way, it's keeping that drama low or to non-existent. So say the bully says, I don't like your shirt, it looks dumb. You can just respond with, maybe, but so. This is kind of just a throwaway, I don't care comment. This is one that obviously your child has to be pretty empowered to feel confident enough to say, maybe, but so. But you're getting there. You can empower them, and I promise that they will get to a place where they can say, so what? Walking away is the very best tool to help a child feel empowered. I like to explain it like this to children. If someone says, I'm going to be sick, you don't stand in front of them, right? You move away. A bully is unhealthy and essentially sick, and they want to throw up all over you. So move away. I know it's kind of gross, but again, kids get that. The other option, obviously, as parents or caretakers, is we have the option to go to the school administration or to the bully's parents. And sometimes I think that there are always situations where it's definitely a need to go to the school administration. I have found that sometimes it works to go to them, and sometimes and to a parent. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I think the best option is to empower your children because, frankly, life is full of bullies, and we want our children, teens, and as they get older to be able to encounter those things and deal and cope with them in a healthy way. So a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to lead a junior high trip of 11 kids, including my daughter, to Appalachia, Kentucky. This part of Kentucky is one of the poorest parts in all of the United States. And to say that the children there were exposed to things that we weren't prepared for is an understatement. They were living in extreme poverty. Our job while we were there was to run a day camp for the local kids, and that included doing devotion time and Bible study. So we had younger kids, and then we had this group of teens, and the teens were tough. They were talking about things like fake IDs and drinking alcohol and all kinds of things that our kids were not exposed to. These teens were really tough, and frankly, they intimidated me. So one day we were getting ready for our Bible study devotion time, and we took all of the teens aside and we walked up to our area where we were going to be. And to my surprise, my daughter, the bullied daughter, got up to lead the Bible study and lead the devotion time. She got up and she explained and shared her bullying experience. And she told how through this experience, she sought God in her loneliest times. And through God, she realized who she was and that the bullies and what they were doing to her wasn't true. So she also explained that as a result of being bullied, she always had eyes out for friends that were being left out. When she told that when she would walk into a room, she would specifically look for kids that were sitting alone. So obviously, this was a really proud moment for me. My daughter had not been experiencing bullying that entire time from this 6th grade until this missions trip. She, in fact, had found ways to thrive and pushed herself out of her comfort zone to meet new friends. But of course, as a parent, in the back of my mind and in my heart, I always wondered how it affected her, and now I knew. I was so happy that through God, she was able to see who she was, and as a result, she became so much more of a compassionate person. So I thank you so much for letting me share tonight. I hope that I have given you some tools that you will be able to take forward with you to empower your children. I know what it's like. I've been through the bullying situation, and I'm here for you. And so I thank you so much for sharing, for letting me share tonight.